Welcome to our podcast, H2AW the 5th. Who, what, when, where, and why. My name is George.
And I'm Marcella. It all began as we were with this H school on our annual field studies, sitting in a hot sunflower field in southern Idaho, learning about agriculture and food systems. Our host mentioned the field was tended by H2A workers from Mexico.
H2 what?
According to the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, the H2A program allows U.S. employers or U.S. agents who meet specific regulatory requirements to bring foreign nationals to the United States to fill temporary agricultural jobs.
We had some questions.
Who benefits from this program?
What industries utilize H2A workers?
When has our country profited from immigrant workers?
Where do the immigrants come from?
Why aren't Americans willing to work for a low wage but still want cheap food? We then looked to someone who could answer our questions.
We called Crystal Lothar from the Idaho Department of Labor, hoping she'd have some answers.
An H2A worker is a foreign worker that comes to the U.S. with the proper visas to perform temporary agricultural work. Well, every year the number gets bigger and the program keeps growing. From October 1st, 2018 through September 30th, 2019, over 4,477 H2 employees have been requested from U.S. employers.
What sorts of jobs do H2A workers hold?
H2A is a specific type of visa that deals with agricultural work only. Most of the H2A workers here in Idaho fall under the general farm labor jobs.
What are the requirements?
Where U.S. employers cannot get enough U.S. employees to help and to work. You have to meet housing requirements, recruitment requirements, and also follow all state and federal regulation.
How much are they paid?
H2A workers are paid no less than AWER, which is considered the adverse effect wage rate, or minimum wage in that state. At this point in time in Idaho, that wage is $13.48 an hour. They cannot be paid any less than that at all, but they can be paid more if the employer chooses to do so.
Next, we needed a new perspective and a more personal connection to the H2A. Remember that guy from the sunflower field?
Yeah, of course.
Well, I called him up to learn a little bit more.
My name is Matthew Clements. I'm a farmer with the J.R. Simplot Company Land and Livestock Division. We are using H2A workers to fill irrigation and general labor and seasonal jobs, because the H2A program has to be seasonal work only. So we have a workforce that is primarily from Mexico.
How does the H2A program ensure that American jobs aren't being taken by H2A immigrants?
So to participate in the H2A, we have to advertise with every job service office in the counties that we participate. If you were looking for a job and went to a job service office and met the minimum requirements in the contract and said, yeah, I really would like to go work for Simplot's Irrigating, I would have to hire you. I don't have a choice. That's one of the things that we're stating with the H2A, is that the reason we're using the H2A contract is because we cannot find resident workers who are willing to do the job. Anybody that is a resident worker that does the same job gets the same pay as they would as if they were an H2 worker. So I can't pay a resident worker less than I'm paying an H2 worker. They provide us with a reliable, skilled workforce to do jobs that otherwise we are struggling to find people to do.
Simplot clearly has a strong relationship with their H2A workers who benefit them greatly. However, in our research, we have also found some downsides to the program.
The following quotes will be read by voice actors. As H2A worker Raymond Escobedo explains,
"There was never enough to eat, and often the food was bad. Some of the food was actually thrown out. Still, they took money for it out of our checks. They took out money for medical care too, but we never got any. The place they had us stay was unsafe, and there was theft. Some workers in California protested, and the company sent them back to Mexico."
According to the U.S. General Accounting Office,
H2A guest workers may be less aware of U.S. laws and protections than domestic workers, and they are unlikely to complain about worker protection violations, fearing they will lose their jobs or not be hired in the future. Lynn Dodson, Secretary-Treasurer of the Washington State Labor Council, commented,
"Immigrant workers have no right to organize, no right to speak up on the job, no right to question working conditions without being deported."
Like any system, there is a way to abuse it, and in this system, the workers don't have the rights to fight back.
The H2A program is very complicated, so before drawing conclusions about immigration, it is important to understand its complexity.
We'll be beginning our descent in about 30 minutes. I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome you to America.
Although there are many opposing views about immigrants, agricultural operations have been using foreign labor for centuries.
Right, the H2A program only began in 1986, but between 1820 and 1930, over 4.5 million Irish immigrated to America, where they built the Erie Canal, railroads, and worked in the mines.
Also, in the 1860s, over 20,000 Chinese laborers, or 90% of the Central Pacific's workforce, came to build the Transcontinental Railroad.
Our point is, immigrants have always provided cheap manual labor. The work of newly arrived immigrants has helped construct our nation's economic success. Matthew Clements agreed that these workers have a huge positive impact on Simplot.
As we advertise these jobs as available, and if anyone shows up and wants the job and meets the minimum requirement in the contract, which is not onerous, we have to hire them. So the only way that these jobs are being stolen is if people are actively not asking for them. I don't even think you can make the argument that it's stealing jobs because they're low-paid jobs, because $13.48 is not is nowhere near minimum wage. They are guaranteed 48 hours a week. Most of them choose to work far more hours a week than that. If someone were to come and take the job, I have the option of sending the H2 employee back to where they're from, and all of ours are from Mexico. The last 4 or 5 years, we haven't had anyone that has been referred to us come and want to do the job.
The reality is many corporations rely on foreign labor to be successful. By foreign labor, I mean immigrants. U.S. citizens don't connect the cost of their food with the wages of people producing it. They don't think of the person picking their potatoes as the immigrant they're trying to keep out of their country.
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists.
Actually, they are bringing in workers because American residents simply don't want to do farm work. According to the United States Department of Labor, out of the American workforce, only 1.4% are agricultural workers. The number of H2A workers has tripled in the last decade, according to a New Republic article. And according to a migration policy article, between 2000 and 2014, the unauthorized share of workers declined from 55% to 47%. With declining undocumented workers, U.S. residents are not stepping up to the plate and filling these openings. Because of this, the government brings in immigrants to take these agricultural jobs that are simply not being filled by residents of the U.S.
I wonder if it's because of the pay. It's grueling work, and workers don't get paid that much. As Matthew Clements said,
It's interesting to me, or surprising, $13.48 an hour is not pulling people out of the woodwork to want to do the job. So, would it have to be $20 an hour to get people, resident workers, to want to do the job? I don't know, 25? And at that point, I'm not sure that our business model, as it said, is sustainable on the lower value crops that we grow.
if he did raise the wage of resident workers, then the price of produce would go up. Americans demand inexpensive food but aren't willing to work for a lower wage. Without cheap labor, there would be no cheap food. So the H2A program provides a solution. Looking back to our time in the sunflower field, I'm glad we asked those questions, because now when I'm eating that $2 burger, I realize that a lot more goes on behind the scenes than meets the eye.
Our nation has been built on the backs of foreign workers who produce the food we eat every single day. The H2A program allows these workers to come to our country legally and do the work to put food on our plates.
We would now like to thank Matthew Clements and Crystal Lothar for their part in creating our podcast.